episode. We haven't decided. We're in the middle of trying to determine, is this 28B or is it 29? Because the number's going to come up 29. So if the numbers get off later on down the road, we don't really care. We hope it confuses you quite immensely. But
Right.
It is what it is, how things roll over here. So what's cool is this is kind of a spin-off of the last one that we just talked about with the pricing, the cheap pricing. And we got a guest on this one with a gentleman by the name of Couch from Eternity Stoneworks, who has kind of been we've decided to adopt the term fecal agitator for it, but no, it's we've had a conversation with him so far, and he's a pretty good dude. He's really kind of on par with us as far as how things go. But introduce yourself, John. Say hey, and tell us about yourself a little bit.
Hello, I am very glad to be here. I was actually surprised you guys invited me, as I am the one of the forum shit stirrers, fecal agitators, whatever you want to call it. But no, I was super excited to come on just to give my point of view. There is so many points of view in this varying industry. There's so many different generations that are involved, and the new guys coming along, and there's the fourth and fifth generation companies. Everybody's got different points of view, and I have a very focused point of view that a lot of people in the different forums have got to learn over the last few years. But no, I'm glad to come on and share my experiences and where I'm coming from.
Oh, yeah. And this is something Tony and I had talked about for a while, was starting to have these kind of shortened segments of having, different companies on, different company owners, just to get their perspective on things. It's a way for people to, the better the exchange of ideas with one another. And it just so happened that your name kind of rose to the top really quickly.
And you wouldn't know why. Would you have any idea as to why?
No idea at all. I'm just supposed to be my.
It was a totally random draw, is what it was.
No, I don't have a filter, and I have some strong opinions of the industry. That's why I'm in the industry. It's why I started my own company, and I have a lot of big problems with where the industry's gotten to, and I think where it's headed. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it stems from the word, we keep liking to throw around that has many definitions, but I feel that there's way too many companies out there that are just gouging the eyes out of these families at the worst time of their life, and that's my biggest problem, and I started my company to go against that.
And I think I kind of talked about this a little bit already, is that some of it's not necessarily even that it's there's effective pricing that makes sense depending upon where you're at. But you're talking a lot about those companies that are doing it really just for the pure profit of it, not necessarily don't care they just want the dollar.
Exactly, and that's the companies and the parts of the industry that I have the biggest problem with.
Well, and that's a lot of what we're here for too. Is like what started all this, the podcast, because heck, we've run some companies in the past we try not to reveal names, but at some point in time, some certain names may come up, concerning some things that have gone wrong in the industry. But what's right is right, and those families are grieving, and taking care of the grieving families should be number one priority. Yes, you got to make money, you got to be able to run things.
We're all here to make profit. None of us that I know of are running 501c charity monument companies. So we're all here to make a profit. But
I was getting the impression that's what you were doing.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to start the charity, but that's what the company.
UNICEF Stoneworks.
The company OnlyFans page is free, so that's our charity.
Yeah, and before we actually got to sit down and talk with one another, of course, there was I think one of the biggest problems is whenever you sit there and you read the things that people post on the forums, the pages, and things like that. It's like reading a text message from your wife. You don't know what the intent of that text message is. And sometimes it's hostile and you don't know it's hostile, and you just go tiptoeing through the garden about it. And then you get home and you find out, well, you're in trouble. And until you actually get
meant to be hostile at all, and that's the way
correct.
It's
correct. Yeah. But until you get the opportunity to actually, talk it out with one another, of course, in this case, we find that we actually have a lot more in common than what we ever knew.
And I think the biggest thing that triggered probably the topic in the last episode you guys did, and what most recent fecal agitator session I had in there was, people talking about charging $200-$300 for a rendering when the family comes in and sits down. That is batshit crazy insane. That is right on par with the companies that I have a problem with.
And I'll be honest with you. I've tried doing the design fee. I found for me it ran more people off than it actually brought people in. I just had to go. You know what? I'm gonna trust it. We're gonna do our job right. God's gonna take care of us, and we're gonna do what we can to take care of those families. And if you do right by the families, it comes back. Not every time.
Now, do we charge extra
somebody
for
may walk
more involved design work? Absolutely. But that's after the point of sale, when they've already told me what they're wanting and expecting. That's factored into their price, that extra design time. To spit them out a quick rendering and then try and charge them for it, or say they can't leave, or take a picture of the screen with their phone. Or I want the shoppers. So many of these companies are like, we don't want the shoppers. I'll take every shopper that wants to come through my door. Let them take my rendering, go somewhere else, because they're not going to find a better quality product for my price.
Mm-hmm. And one of the problems I see with the wanting to charge the design fee, of course, if you're doing it with every single one that comes through the door, is if you're talking about our basic bread and butter stuff that's just regular panel designs with whatever clip art you want to put to it. There's nothing special about that, and I don't think there's a reason to charge for that.
A design,
especially whenever anybody's capable of recreating that inside of 5 minutes.
So that was my exact statement. I said 10 to 20 minutes, and that's what set everybody off.
Yeah. The design fee for DMart 1528 doesn't make any sense because everybody's already got it. Like we have a rule here at our shop, and that's I actually don't. DMart did some great work, but it's been overused. We don't use any of that stuff. Every one of our designs is one off for that family. Say it what right for the most part. We'll have. But we tell every one of those designs, every one of those families, to make sure that it's perfect. So I still don't do a design fee. I understand that we've talked about job. Is like I kind of get it because it's such a special thing, not the amount of time it takes to do a cross. I get some of that because he's going to put a lot of hours into seat time into designing that not work for what they're doing. I get it. It's not what we do. It's not. He's
paying attention to certain items and design aspects of those crosses that I don't even know exist.
Yeah. So
that level of work
teach their own.
Be charged extra for. They're also not doing a quick rendering of that when the family walks in and trying to charge them to.
Right.
It's it's apples and oranges.
And then you even get into another whole realm of it whenever you talk about some of these companies that still have draftsmen on staff that are sitting there doing these like basically pieces of art for a family that's worthy of framing.
Oh, John Fanley is that.
They're still
there in those Northern Ohio. Yeah.
Just for the record, I am not one of those. I cannot draw a straight line with a ruler.
No, I don't do designs in front of the family. I just don't. I feel like it's a disservice for me, and my attitude on it is it's a disservice to the family for me because I don't feel like I can put the focus I need to and the care into it that I need to make it right or make it look the way after. Especially having come in here, they know kind of that we're doing stuff different and it's not out of a book. I'll kind of do some pencil sketches right there in front of them on a piece of paper. Like, what do you think of this or what do you think of that? And trying to pick their brain a little bit. But we'll kind of get some ideas and say, okay, well, let us play with it and get you a design. And it right now it's a week at least before I can get them a design. So
yeah, we're about 50-50.
we're more like building a house than designing and building a house than selling a loaf of bread.
Have you noticed in your experience the way you do that, has that served you better than like if you were to just sign up for like Monuvision and be able to whip them up quick designs right there at the point of sale? Or are they not, or do you, the way you do it, they just coming in for a consultation? You're not making the sale right then and then spending the time to get them that more kind of one-off design and then having them come back in, and is that your point of sale?
No, we actually don't make the sale the first trip, and I make a point of it. It is a consultation. We want them to see what they're buying into. I joke all the time, I'm not the used car salesman. What do I got to do to get you in this today? Kind of thing. And I will tell them, look, let's have a conversation. So our little sheet, and I went this before on another podcast, is it says, I need to know contact information, name, address, phone number, email address. I need to know who it's for. It's mom, dad, names, dates, that kind of stuff, anniversary. The next logical question for most people is typically, what do you want on the monument? My next question is, tell me about mom and dad. And we'll have a conversation. We won't talk about monuments at all for 30 minutes. We'll talk about, dad loved fishing. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Where'd he fish? He was always fishing out on Lake Conroe. He had, we don't, oh man, did y'all go out on the boat? No, North Lake Conroe, we'd go out there to the piers and stuff like that and fish out there. And like, oh man, what did he fish with? Was he fishing catfish? And oh yeah, he'd fish with this Zebco. And I'm making notes this whole time. Mm-hmm. Hunters and stuff like that, they'll say, well, he was a hunter. What did he hunt with? He had this old Winchester they used to shoot. And I'll write Winchester down. I don't want a gun on there. That's fine. I understand. I'm making mental notes, explaining to them. And what I'm doing is I'm going, there's things within all these stories that are iconic to them that bring back core memories that I'm bringing in. I'm bringing in fonts from the Winchester rifle. I'm bringing details out, not the full rifle. I'm just bringing out these little odds and ends things within these stories to put on the stone.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because I have one that I'm literally about to start engraving on. That the family had said he was a hunter. Remington 700 was the gun that he always used, but didn't want to just go like just putting the gun on it. So the R, the family name is Rutan, and the R in it is the Remington R.
Yeah, and that's
they see that and it clicks with them.
I've used that same R and they loved it every time.
Yeah. And that's what we did. There was one that we did a while back, and I was, of course, last time I talked about the designs from a bottle that I taught in New York back in 2020, and when I did the designs from a bottle, I kind of explained this to a customer when they asked what I was doing up there. I said, well, if you sit at a bar, you can look at all these different bottles and you go, each one of those different bottles has a different style. So if you're looking at a wine bottle, it's elegant, right? So you wouldn't do a Chardonnay for a man, but a Merlot works for a couple.
There's some out there you could.
Depends on what state you're in.
Maybe not in Texas, but we got plenty in Ohio.
Well, in Austin, that works in Austin. That's or Dallas, that works too.
Right.
So but when you get to a rum is very light. So I'm explaining all this to the customer, and they said, you know what? We have a bay house, and we go out to the bay and we go fishing all the time. And we always drink this same rum. And I said, well, what rum is it? And so they told me what it was. I went out and bought a bottle. I'm going to tell you right now, it was trash. It's still sitting on my bar because I refused to drink it. Luckily, I didn't spend that much money on it. But Florida, I don't know. So we had I designed the label or designed the monument off of that, and they loved it. Just absolutely, there was no shopping at that point in time anymore. They knew exactly what they wanted. They knew exactly what they were going to get. So, and there's different models for all that stuff. I know that's not for everybody. And I know, everybody goes, oh, well, you're the designer guy. And I go, I get it. I think of myself more as a numbers guy than I do anything else, or a business guy than I do a design guy. I just so happen to do design. But that's my model is I want to have that communication with the family, because I figure if the goal here is to help the family find closure, then finding closure is having those conversations. I don't ask for a budget. I've gone over that a bunch of times. Your budget of what you're wanting to spend is none of my business.
Oh no, I've never asked them what their budget is. Well, and if they're walking through my door, I mean, it's already a lower budget because they've already shopped around. But
right.
I never ask for a budget. And we do have customers that we get to that in-depth level of detail that you were just mentioning. But it's, I mean, maybe 3 out of every 10 we get to that level of design detail. The rest of them know exactly what they want when they sit down in front of me. We're literally designing it in real time, right in front of them, letting them pick everything, and that's the point of sale. It's if it needs to be more consultation, if it needs another visit, or if they do, even if the point of sale is not then and they want to see something else, then we'll go back. I'll send it back to my designer and say, hey, this is what this family wants to see. And then it's usually not even another consultation. We're usually either emailing or texting. They're like, yep, that's good. That's what I meant. So but very rarely, I mean, it's just a small fraction that doesn't get past that initial design it in front of them. They sign off on the rendering right there, the point of sale, and that's it. There's no more consultation. But like I said, that all ties into the market I'm in, like we were talking about. I'm one of 7 or 8 companies within 30 minutes. So they've already been to 2 or 3 companies.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, for me, I figure if I can lock them up and spend time with them, then they're going, man, I don't want to go do that with somebody else. You know, the other aspect too is that I had looked up your market in Dayton and looked up what the average household income is there, and like I think the stat I had read on Wikipedia was something like, and I don't know about it for the entire greater Dayton area, but at least for Dayton itself, 25% of your population lives below the poverty line, and that's got to be taken into account too. That's a huge number for y'all. For us, it's a little different because we have the university here. Brazos County is like 300,000 people. You've got, that doesn't count the 80,000 students we have at Texas A&M. So we've got money flowing in from all kinds of places. And so it's a little different animal here. And that's stuff to be taken into account too when you're talking about some of that stuff. You know, what's a budget? What do monument costs look like? When we talk about places like New York with Joe Casera or Chicago with Lisa Troost, you know, the cost of doing business in Chicago or New York City is astronomical. I think
their monuments are going to be way more than ours.
Oh yeah. Well, Austin, was it on the podcast when Joe was saying that they've got tolls that they've got just to go across the bridge cost them like $50 or something like that, just to go.
Whenever their trips on tolls are figured into the cost of their monument, and it's nothing insignificant. It's something that, you know, whenever you figure through the course of the year how many times you're passing through those tolls, like that's got to be factored into your price. And of course, you know,
I've got a toll tag. I've got a toll tag for the few times I go to Houston, but it doesn't ever leak. I think I've got it reset to refill at $40 or something like that, and we don't ever touch it. So it's like I may spend $300 on tolls a year.
Yeah. And it's entirely possible for him to spend $300 on tolls inside of just a few days to a week.
Oh yeah. So that
could just be 2 or 3 set trips.
Right.
Yeah. Oh God, don't forget anything either, right?
I was about to say that. Don't forget a vase. Do not forget a vase.
No. And like I said before, I know a lot of my opinions are just based on my market, but as you know, the longer I've been in the, you know, as time goes on that I've been in the industry, you talk to more people, you network, you talk to other places all over the country, and there's plenty of people out there that their operating costs are just the same as mine, if not below. And it's like, they're the ones that we were talking about earlier, like charging $30,000 for that obelisk. And it's like, where are your margins coming from? And the biggest problem I have is also, if you start looking into the company and looking at their website or their Facebook page, they're also the companies that I've noticed that charge the most unnecessarily are always the fakest ones of, one of my competitors that's the highest price in the area, they've got an on-staff grief counselor. It's like, and it's always posting about the community this and the community that, and they're charging $12,000 for a, 36/6/24 black with 2 laser etchings is $12,000.
Oh my gosh!
You're going to tell me you care about the community? We're getting our granite from the same place. We're paying the same price. And then, you've got an on-staff grief counselor for what? The raping that you're giving people they feel bad about. You'll grief counsel them. I mean, geez.
It's funny you say that. Now I'm going to grab the price book because I want to see what a 36 would go for here.
It's funny. I think we're looking out the same price book because your last episode, when you looked up that flush, I pulled my price book out while I was listening along, and it was the exact same price you mentioned. I think we might be looking out the same price book.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
30, what did you say? What size?
I know there is one funeral home. It's in the DFW area, and it's a large funeral home, and I'm not going to drop the name, but they sell, of course, funerals, headstones, flowers. There's a Starbucks inside of this funeral home.
Oh my gosh,
Jesus!
And you can only imagine the prices that become associated with that, because if a cup of gas station coffee is going to run you around 75 cents to $1, depending upon the gas station, but at Starbucks it's going to be $6. Everything else is about the same for it.
Okay, you said a 36 by 6 by what? 2?
36/6/24 P2 with 2 4x6 laser etchings on a 48/12/6 PT base.
All right, there's the base.
Family brought me a quote for $12,000.
Yeah, I'm looking up mine right now.
Before the laser, because I'd have to do a bunch of other math. Before the laser, I'm going to call it $5,400. That's a little bit of rounding.
Well, I'll tell you, I sold it for 30.
What size was the base?
48
12/6.
4 foot.
Okay.
I sold it for $3,600.
Yeah,
and they got two vases.
Well, the $12,000 already tells you. I mean, that's where you kind of go, this is out of control.
My market is that, and that sums up my market. Other than me and the place I used to work before I started this place, and like I said, they're still at least 25, 30% above me. But other than us two, which are the only two in this area I would consider fairly priced for a quality product that are actually doing their own monuments. Don't even get me started on just the retailers that are just ordering the stuff already done, and then something they order in for $3,000 that they're turning around selling for 10, 12, 13.
Yeah.
But just the actual monument shops, we're at the bottom, and then all the rest of the 5, 6 of them, they're all at those ridiculous.
Well, and you'll see some of that stuff. I know that there was a funeral home or a cemetery that we had to price against, and I did a family wanted bronze on granite, or it was a bronze on granite only cemetery. And I told the story before. I just don't remember if I told it on here. I read the rules, and the rules specified the size of the stone. It specified the size of the stone, and then it had to be bronze on granite. It did not specify the size of the bronze. So they wanted blue pearl granite. But this didn't make a lot of sense to me. Why am I going to order a bronze on granite and you only get a 2-inch margin of granite? Then you're going to spend all that money on that blue pearl granite. So what I did was I decided at that point in time, let's read the rules. And when I understood the rules, I did all of the text in bronze. So I did individual bronze plates for the family names, or for the given names, and then individual letters from Straw Soccer for the family. And in doing that, what I ended up doing was I gave them a price, and my price was actually not cheap, but it was like, at that time, $6,000 or something like that. So doing was I gave them the price, I gave them the design, and I said, all right, look, here's the deal. I'm going to give you this number. Don't give the cemetery the number. You can give them the design, see if they can price it. But don't give them the price, because they'll just match it and beat it. Go see how honest they're going to be. And taking the design because they're going to have to approve it anyway. Like I said, I was like $6,000 or something like that. The cemetery came back to him with, I don't know where. So the cemetery came back to him at $21,000 for this marker.
Whoa!
And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So they knew at that point in time that it was just not going to be feasible, like to go with them. It's just like this is stupid stuff. You know, now you know who's what. It's about the dollar. It's not about the family.
And that's my biggest problem with my market and anybody that operates like the ones in my market. Just at what point does being a profitable business go away and it just turns into pure greed and screwing people at the worst time of their life?
Well, see, and I wonder that even in my area, and I know my competitors' pricing fairly well, but I know there has been others in the past, but I hear it quite often. Like whenever somebody comes in and they're just wanting like a 4-foot upright, and I'll price it out to them, and you'll see like the whole body language change whenever I give them my price, and the next thing they say is like, "Oh, that's a lot better than I thought it was going to be." No, I'm glad you think that. We're here to take care of you. And they say, "Well, no, we were thinking this was going to be $10,000." And
that's my favorite reaction. And they find out how much farther their dollar goes.
Mm-hmm. And some of it is because, like whenever somebody has a family member that passes away and family will come together. And a lot of times we have family members come with other family members to the shop that aren't from this area. And they're coming from some of those bigger markets to where those prices like that exist. And of course, that's one of those, we talked about earlier is, do you ever ask a family what their budget is? And I have before, but only because of the circumstances surrounding what was going on. But, obviously our first mission is one, to take care of the families that are coming to us. They're putting their trust in us to take care of something that's very near and dear to their hearts. But then, of course, we're still running a business here. And then you think, because sometimes there are people that they come here, they're prepared to spend $10,000, but they spend $5,000. And yeah, man, I'd love to have that extra $5,000, but is it at the expense of my dignity to do it?
And I'm not delusional. I'm aware of the thousands of dollars I leave on the table every time. Mm-hmm. But that's not my business model. It's not why I started the company. I notice it. We all have that little greedy part in us. That little part in the back of my head is like, you dumbass, you just left $5,000 on the table. But at the end of the day, it's like,
you do that. And I've said for a long time, if you take care of the families will inevitably take care of you.
Oh, 100% of the time. Advertising. And my business has blown up in the last year. Yeah. It's all been word of mouth.
And for us, it's very similar. We do advertise, but for us, I get more word of mouth business than anything else because like the guy that came in today, he came in right as we were closing at 3:00. We installed his wife's monument yesterday. He's young. Guy's in his 50s. Wife was in her late 40s. Passed away to cancer. He was so mad at us yesterday because he was one of those that wanted to be in the cemetery when we installed it. And we said, look, we'll probably be out there about this time. We can't guarantee it. And stuff came up and we weren't there right on time, and he gets upset. Well, he didn't know that one of my guys had a medical emergency at home that he had to take care of. So when he came in today, he came in just to say, man, look, what do I owe you? Anything else you did? And I said, you don't owe us a thing, because we re-leveled his parents' monument that was sitting right next to it. I didn't charge him for it. We just did it because it's right there. And he goes, well, what do I owe you for that? I said, you don't. I said, we're fine. He said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And he goes, man, I'm going to tell so many people about you. And that's going to pay dividends. What was I going to charge him? $250 to re-level that stone while we're there? I'm going to make more money off of not charging him for that re-level than I could have ever thought I was going to do well with by doing it, by charging him for
absolutely. I give away so many free vases and free re-highlights and cleanings and relevels, and they're like, oh, while you're out there, could you take a look at, Aunt Karen's stone, 2 stones down in the same row, and it's, while I'm already out there setting theirs, I take care of whatever else they needed. And like you said, that's going to come back tenfold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think some of it too, some of the things too that we do is you mentioned earlier trying to make sure that families aren't just browbeat the worst time in their life and they can afford something. That is one of the things I'm looking forward to whenever I do this. I can't sell that in my area bit at MoneyCon because I'm going to show some of the stuff. I've got one right now that's I took a base. I've actually sold it already for $1,250. I've got a damaged black base that's outside, and it's a 3.0 base. I'm going to cut that bottom chip off and make that my joint, and I'm going to stand it up. I already had to do something to fix it or whatever, but I just sold it for $1,250, and now it's a monolith upright for a family that didn't have much money.
You price gouger.
Why wasn't it free?
You already had it. It was damaged.
I laugh and joke about that, but that's the argument when I've brought that up before, and they're like, well, what do you charge? And I tell them, I'm $1,500 singles and, $2,600, $2,700 doubles. And well, why are you gouging them? Why isn't it $1,000? Why isn't it $2,000? And it's just, they're just mad because they're one of the companies that are charging $6,000 for that same thing.
Yeah.
Whatever profit margin you're at, they're like, well, why isn't it 10% less than that?
Right.
Well, now, I still want to go get barbecue every once in a while.
Exactly. Hey, speaking of MoneyCon, John, you plan on going?
No,
come on.
I haven't ever been to a convention or an MBNA function or.
Hey, come to MoneyCon at least.
Not saying I never will, but I just haven't been to. In 12 years, I've never been to anything.
You got to go. Need to buy your beer.
Is it an MBNA thing or what is it?
No, it's unaffiliated.
It's not MBNA. Yeah, MoneyCon's is.
Then I definitely.
It's technically
yeah, well, it's coming up in February. Going to be in Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
When I think of any conventions or get-togethers or anything, I think MBNA, and I zero to do with that organization. But if it's not affiliated with them, I'm all for it. When and where. First round's on you.
Yeah. I will say the conventions, the best thing you get out of them is spent at the bar, not because you're drinking, but because it's conversations like we have here on the podcast where they're just straightforward. You don't have to feel like you're wearing a stuffed shirt or anything like that. Everybody's just telling the stories and talking, and you get so much information out of those things. So that's why we push it so heavily on the podcast, because it's important. You're going to get a lot out of those conventions to justify the expense. So I'd encourage.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You still get a good bit out of sitting through some of the educational sessions, but like Tony said,
I've thought about going just for some of the seminars and stuff. But it's a lot of the biggest problems I have with the industry and where it's gotten today and where I think it's heading is basically the poster child for the problems I have with it is the MBNA. I despise that organization. I think they're pushing an agenda that encourages companies to be charging $12,000 for a 36-6-24 with 2 laser etchings. Right down to their ridiculous certified memorialist program. It's everybody I've met that has that on a business card couldn't memorialize their way out of a wet paper bag, and they're the places charging these ridiculous that know nothing, that have never touched a piece of granite. And it's just that's why I don't go to the conventions.
And I will say MBNA has its pluses, it has its minuses, just like every other thing there is. But we're not sitting here being sponsored by them, so I'll just say what I feel and I'll be straightforward about it. They've had their downfalls and they've had their good times.
I'm sure back in the day, and I'm sure it's one of those things. It was probably a good thing way back when, but I find
will say that things are looking better now than they were a couple of years ago. things are looking a lot better now than they were a couple of years ago.
I hate
that's not a defense. That is not me being in defense. That's me just saying from what I've seen, Matt has done a really good job of trying to fix some of the problems that had come up. So, teach their own. I guess on it. I'm not trying to change. I'm not going to try and change your opinion by any stretch.
No, not at all. And I respect your opinion, but it's I think one of my biggest problems is they want you to think that they're the pulse of the industry. When you look at their numbers, there's somewhere between 300 and 400 registered MBNA monument shops in the U.S. Something somewhere around there. I haven't checked in a while. Yeah, and there's, like I said,
they don't represent 10% of the industry by any stretch of the imagination.
It's a drop in the bucket. Like I said, there's 7 or 8 within a half hour of me, and you're telling me you've got 300 to 400 followers and you got the pulse of the industry. It's like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, and once you just talk to your vendors, you find out how many people aren't actually MBNA members and whatnot as well. So, yeah, teach their own. It's where the value is or whatever for what it is. But
if I saw value in it, I would be all for it. If I thought being a member and utilizing them would help me better serve my families, I'd be all for it. I see zero benefit to that organization, and like I said, I just don't like what they represent, because to me they're pushing an agenda that's trying to get more shops out there charging $12,000 for a standard black companion, and that's my biggest problem.
No, I get it.
I get it, and of course, whenever this episode airs, I know big shocker, John. There's going to be some people that disagree with you. Just prepare yourself, all right? Don't want you getting your feelings hurt.
I'm sure I'll get a phone call or two from people that are
probably
on the boards over there, but it's fine. Everybody's going to the same thing.
But I think that regardless of whether or not people agree with your opinion, I think it is constructive that people in the organization need to hear these opinions. They need to be addressed.
Yeah, you can't fix it. You can't fix what's broken if you don't know it's broken.
Correct.
And I don't blame a lot of people for the way they are that I have opinions about. I think we're in uncharted territory. We are in a time where the consumer mentality, we're in such a weird consumer market that everything in the past has went out the window. We are in the now, gimme generation of, I call it the Amazon effect. It's there's 68-year-old grandmas pulling their phone out to find the best price on a lawnmower. It's everybody is price shopping. Nobody, you can't baffle people with the same bullshit sales pitches that worked before they could pull their phone out and fact check you. So it's such an evolving consumer market that a lot of monument companies are way behind the times. Not knocking them. It's a lot of older generation, multi-generation. Can't adapt or evolve.
Getting monument guys to it's like dragging them into the 19th century, understanding fully well that we're in the 21st. They don't like change. Monument guys don't like change.
No. And they don't know how to adapt to this consumer market, because the people that will blindly pay 10, 12, 15 grand for grandma's headstone because you've got a good sales pitch about quality, your granite comes from a better supplier, blah, 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 perpetual care, extended warranties, whatever. That generation is dying. They're the ones getting the headstones bought for them. Now the kids and grandkids are buying, and they're not believing that bullshit. So you've got to be able to convince them of why this product costs what it costs, because if they're savvy enough, they can pull out their phone and find out what we're paying for it. It's not
right, which is why,
not a secret.
The way we've set up our stuff is that I decided the same kind of thing a long time ago, and I decided that the way I had to approach it for my market was that I had to produce something that looked so different and so high quality that it looked like the value was there, and that was our route. That everybody's got different routes. That was ours, but I knew that I had to do something different to justify trying to. Why won't I go with the other guy? Because the other guy's not going to do this.
Here's something that'll ruffle some feathers. I'll pull out my price book and show the customer what I pay for it. Here's what I pay for my raw materials. Here's what it costs me in stencil, glue, labor, the crane truck to go set it. Here's what the cost of my services are. Here's your final price. I want them to see where their dollar goes, because that's this evolving consumer market. That's what people want to see. That's what makes them feel comfortable that they're at the right place. They're like, well, here's what this guy needs to make. Here's what he paid for it. That's the consumer that we're dealing with in this generation. They can pull their phone out of their pocket and find any price they want, any cost of any material. Literally everything's at your fingertips. So this, we've got grandpa in the back hand cutting stencil with an X-Acto knife, and we do this a little different, and we gotta, it's a rock. I know that's a highly debatable term, but at the end of the day, this is a big, heavy, shiny, expensive rock that has a large amount of emotional attachment to it. And that,
John, is it igneous or is it metamorphic?
Hey, funny side story. One of my competitors, I put out all kinds of PSAs on my Facebook page. Everybody can go see them. But I put out one of just warning a consumer thing of, hey, you know what? These things are special. They mean a lot to a lot of people. That what they represent is immeasurable. At the end of the day, it's a product like any other product, and you need to do your homework and due diligence and make sure you're not going to get taken advantage of. At the end of the day, it's a rock. Whatever attachment or meaning you want to put to it is fine, but I'm not going to try and gouge you for any extra money because of that emotional attachment. It wasn't the next week, one of my biggest competitors that has probably the highest prices in the area put out a paid sponsored Facebook ad of, we don't sell rocks, we sell memorials. I couldn't help myself. I commented and be like, well, it's funny. Your memorials look just like my rocks and cost about 5 times as much.
You've definitely got more testicular fortitude than I have, because I've seen some of these companies all over the country where they'll post the pictures of their stuff. And I just really want to comment on how bad the product is. Like Austin and I will text each other nonstop where I'll see just a really
there's screenshots all the time.
Piss poor monument that I've seen produced. Like they just didn't care, and here they are posting pictures of, look what we did for this family, and you're like, that's what you did? I don't care what your price was. I really don't. But that's what you thought was okay. It's not even so much that you thought it was good, but you thought it was good enough to post a picture of to show what your work looks like.
The date cutters that post pictures of their dates are my cringiest thing. It's like, you should not be doing dates.
And Tony, right now, my feelings are a tad bit hurt because I posted a design on Monument Builders about 30 minutes before this podcast started. That is, there's no question about it. It's the most expensive design I've ever put out, and you have not even mentioned it yet.
Well, that's because that design was already copywritten.
I didn't see a copyright on it.
And that design that got posted that I commented on that caused all the fecal agitation, if that would have been a design that was worthy of somebody getting pissed off about stealing, I probably wouldn't have said a word. But like I said in my comments, it was like, okay, that would have took 20 minutes tops to recreate. It's nothing special. It's all drag and drop clip art elements. What's the problem? And then that's when the people.
And I'll say, I will say that I believe, knowing Phil, I think that post probably had more to do with venting than anything else.
Right.
Just being frustrated.
You lose a sale. It sucks to lose a sale. But I guess I'm a little fortunate because I don't lose sales, because once they come through my door, they don't go anywhere else. It's nobody's going to beat my price for the quality of product I turn out. It's so and I think I commented that made some other people butthurt. It's like, you need to not be worrying about why somebody's stealing your design. You need to go to the root cause and figure out why you lost a sale.
Well, and I think the biggest issue that I tend to see more than anything is I have this rule in it, and whether people believe it or not, I don't think of myself as anything special, and nobody should think of themselves as anything special.
No, the worst thing you can take seriously is yourself.
Right, exactly, because the families don't care. The families want to honor their loved one that's passed away. They want to do something for them. They don't care anything about me. They don't. So getting hung up on it is now I get frustrated when my stuff gets stolen too or whatever, but it is what it is. And
no, it is frustrating. I've been in the same boat. I've walked through the cemetery before and saw a design that I know for a fact I drew up, and you're sitting there staring at it, just going, "Well,
I'm not doing any designs pre-sale that I'm worried about anybody stealing. So I'm not doing any design work that I would be butthurt about losing until after their money's already in my bank account."
Mm-hmm.
So,
But one of the things that I've ran into before, and I've heard it from families, and of course I'm not saying this to put a feather in my cap and say that I'm some amazing designer, but there is a company here in my area that has told families to get me to draw something and then bring it to them, and they will beat my price. And
I'd be designing things that they couldn't figure out how to even sandblast it or cut the rock.
No, and I've seen the execution of some of them, and it's piss poor, to put it in the easiest way possible. But I don't know. It's one of those that I know I'm not the cheapest in my area, but I know I am competitive in my area. And
yeah,
how many competitors do you guys have within, say, go pretty broad, say 50 miles? How many other companies are you guys going up against?
I'm counting. Probably 9 within 50 miles.
Oh, so you guys are pretty.
10.
I've got 5.
You guys are, I'd say.
Of course, it gets pretty rural out where I'm at too.
Yeah.
So you guys are probably above averagely saturated then. I thought you were both going to say like 2 or 3.
No. But in Brazos County, there's 5 of us. Two are, they're fairly new. They worked for one of the other companies. Both of them did, and they left and started their own company. And they left really before they had really spent a lot of time in production. Like you'd said, you'd been in production for 12 years. They
9 years before I started my own company.
But I'm talking if they had been there 2 years, that was a lot.
Oh wow.
Okay, hey, I can go do this.
I know this is rewinding quite a bit, but of course, you said you were in it for 9 years. What got you into the business?
Completely random. I came back. I was living in Indiana. Came back for a family death, and ended up needing to stay a little while to deal with the family stuff, and was fairly hammered at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And saw a Craigslist ad for a monument company production worker. Answered it. Owner called me like, I don't know, a week later. I completely forgot about it.
Oh, I was hoping you was going to say he called you at like 8 a.m.
No. I completely forgot about it and swore up and down for the first probably 50 seconds of the phone call. I was like, dude, you got the wrong number. Like, what do you want? Completely forgot I even applied for the job. And I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll come in for an interview. And the rest is history.
I love that.
What? I think my entry into the industry was sober. So, I mean, you've got me up on that.
I mean, as I'm sitting here having a rum and coke talking to you guys, apparently nothing's changed. But
now my entry into the industry was sober, and then it became intoxicated afterwards.
I tell you what, my drinking severely picked up when I hired my first employee. Normally you'd think, well, when you started the company because of the stress. No, it wasn't until the employees came along.
Yes.
And it's funny, we talked about it earlier, but I don't know if we did since it started recording. I loved the job. It was great family, great little mom and pop shop. They made me feel like one of the family. I truly, and it wasn't about the money because it didn't pay that great, but it was one of them. I truly loved the work, loved what we were doing. Like I said, other than me, before I came along, the lowest prices in the region. He wasn't greedy. He gave families, a fair price for a quality product, and it was just great. I just truly liked what I was doing. And then all of a sudden I was accused of trying to go behind him and start my own company, completely ill-founded and false, and was fired for it after 9 years, his longest employee. And I sat at home for probably 2 weeks, scratching my head, like, well, what am I going to do? I love doing this. Like, well, I could start doing dates. And it was like, well, I'll start doing dates just to build a company. And, well, screw it. I got accused of it. Well, let's have some fun. Let's build a company. I started this company with $4,000 in my pocket. And here we are, just had our 2-year anniversary with 4 employees and starting to dominate this market.
I know you say it in jest, but that's usually whenever some of the best things happen in your life is whenever you say, well, screw it. Just go for it.
Completely had zero. I mean, if you guys knew me, the likelihood of me ever.
Oh, I'll get to know you better when you're in Syracuse, New York for MonuCon.
The likelihood of me ever running a company, let alone succeeding, is so uncharacteristic. And it's, well, I mean, I've basically got the same attitude in life as I screw with people in the forums. I've got a screw it attitude, take it or leave it, and we'll throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. And if it don't, oh well.
I'll tell you, I mean, if you're going to screw with people, the forum is the way to go, because that's all people that are cemetery and funeral home directors anyway.
That's the majority. That's the majority where you see the question: what font is this?
Yeah.
What color is this?
Yeah, standard modified Roman. What font is this? That's why I left the other forum and joined your guys' forum, because you guys have half the members of the other one, but all of those other members in the other one are secretaries at funeral homes and somebody weed eating at a cemetery that's trying to give opinions on something in the monument industry. And between the spam and everything else, it got to be way too much.
And that's, of course, but before you came on, we sent you a little form to fill out just to get a little background on you. And that was my favorite answer that you gave. And of course, the question was any fun facts or hobbies you'd like to share with our audience. And you talked about, some of your past and whatnot, but it was the last sentence. And you said, one of my favorite guilty pleasure hobbies is trolling stupid people in the monument forums. And that right there, I was like, I like this guy.
Because some of it, it may not be the most mature thing, but some of it turns into just targeted trolling when somebody has displayed such a level of stupidity that can't go unanswered. And it's, a perfect example was, I use a $1,000 Titan 3 15-inch plotter to cut death dates in the cemetery. It's amazing for the price. I think it's stupid to pay $4 or $5,000 for a plotter to cut death dates in the cemetery. So I tell everybody about it. Anybody that asks or looking for new advice for a new date cutter, like Titan 3, $1,000, best money you'll ever spend. And there was a guy that bought one in the other forum that could not figure out how to work it. He all he would do is bash it because he couldn't figure out how to use it. So he would follow me to every comment that I made recommending it to somebody. Don't buy this. It's garbage. Don't be cheap. You shouldn't be doing dates if you can't afford $4 or $5,000 anyway. And it's like, okay, now we're going to have some fun. I kind of went ham on that guy, but it's people like that. It's just
you almost should have taken it out and taken the point to like every comment you made to talk about how great that plotter is at that point in time.
I did purposely on. Yeah, it was. And I guess he could be close enough to be considered a competitor. He's probably an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes away across the river in Kentucky. And it's, I may or may not have paid for a few targeted Facebook ads of some ridiculously cheap prices in his market.
May or may not have.
That can't be confirmed nor denied.
No.
Well, John, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time and all. It's been great. It's been good to get to know you. You're
I appreciate you guys asking, man.
So you're not as bad as I would think you are. I mean, you're just as ugly as before, but that's fine. You can't see me now because my camera's off.
At least the people listening don't have to look at me. And if people would just, yes, I'm opinionated. If you actually read what I write and not just see you're stupid if you charge $200 for a rendering. That took 10 minutes. If you read the context, and most of my comments are you'll see that it's rooted in some sort of fact, that it's not just an opinion. So it's knee-jerk reactions by Karens that are
the first reply I ever made to any one of your comments, and I was painting with I'll admit full-heartedly, I was painting with a pretty broad brush whenever I made that first comment, and it was your reply back to me. And then as I read that comment, I was like,
I don't even remember which one was it.
Oh, man, I'd have to go back and read it just to be sure. But I even called Tony. I even called Tony afterwards, and I was like, you know what? I kind of agree with this dude. Like,
it's like,
I get it.
I just want the prices in this industry to come down. I want this to be a fair product for people. It shouldn't cost $10,000 to put a headstone on Grandpa's grave.
Right. Well, and see, I think a lot of people, and of course, I was in the same camp as a lot of the other people, that whenever you were, making your post talking about how this industry is price gouging, again, that was painting with a pretty broad brush whenever I read that, and what I was thinking, that you were looking at a lot of us and saying that all you assholes are price gouging. But whenever we finally get the chance to talk,
and you two are obviously not.
Right.
And whenever get mad are.
Right. But whenever we finally get the chance to talk and you break it down, I'm like, yeah, that is price gouging.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taking advantage of the people at their most vulnerable moment in their life.
And all you see is dollar signs. We have two owners of competing companies in my market that I have personally heard openly brag about, if they pull up in a Mercedes or a Cadillac and we see them get out, the price just went up 20-30%. And I know that's
which is moronic for me, because the people that pull up in a Mercedes or Cadillac are the ones that are spending the least amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Up until recently, I used to say, like 4 or 5 years ago, the most expensive monument I ever sold was to a guy who pulled up in a 98 Ford Explorer Sport Track. And it had some miles on it. It was a $35,000 monument. So that's what he wanted.
No, I've literally had a billionaire here in my shop before, and he bought a gray 2-foot slant marker.
Yeah.
Even though, I'm pretty open about, I consider these just a regular product or commodity. I take the emotional side out of it, keep it, I refuse to upcharge based on emotion, which is what a lot of companies do. They're playing on the emotion you have tied to this. And, I'm not delusional into the fact that, this isn't a lawnmower or a used car or something. It is more important to people. But at the end of the day, it's just a product. So don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. If that's why you charge an extra $8,000 on top of what I charge for the exact same product, manufactured the exact same way, installed the exact same way, in the exact same market, you charge $8,000 more just because of that emotional attachment that you're pushing on these people. And these are the companies that my families come in and tell me they've already been there, and will quote them verbatim of, well, is this something you really want to skimp on? I mean, this was your mom, this is really special. It's like you are
how much did you love your mom?
Yep, I've heard that exact quote.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that's what I have a problem with. And I know there's a lot of good companies, a lot of good owners in this industry and in the forums, and it's my opinions aren't directed towards them, but they're overshadowed by the companies that, like the obelisk I just sold that I posted pictures of, that brought me quote for $30,000. It's, what? And it's those shops that are the worst offenders. Guess what sticker they got hanging in their front door? A nice big MB&A member. So that's part of my problem with the MB&A too. I started this business to bring change to my market, and hopefully it takes off enough, which it's heading in that direction, to where we can expand outside of this market.
No, you're definitely a man on a mission. I'll give you that.
I live extremely cheap. I don't need anything fancy. I make a living, but it's every penny. Like when I started selling this aluminum oxide that I got the silly good deal on, it's every penny of that goes into getting these monuments cheaper. Like I said, my goal is to get the $1,000 single and $2,000 double. That's my goal in the next 2 years. For every profit of penny, or every penny of profit that this company turns goes right back into figuring out how to get the cost down. That means I'm selling aluminum oxide that I get ridiculously cheap. If the 1,500 a year death dates we do, that profit goes into these monuments.
No, I mean it's
good.
yeah. So I mean that's hearing a lot of that. Of course, there's a lot of things you say that I agree with, and then there's some that we're not in lockstep with one another. But I mean, we're all entitled to our opinions, and I'm not saying that my opinion's right or your opinion's wrong, but that's one thing that a lot of people need to understand is it doesn't matter what your opinion is.
No.
Your actions mean more than your opinions.
Exactly.
And like I said, the two owners of competing companies that I ran into in the last few months in the cemetery and got the exact same statement from both of them. The first statement out of one of them was, "You're screwing the rest of us." That's how he opened the conversation. But then I got the exact same statement after that from both of them. It's like, why in the hell would you want to have to sell 10 monuments to turn the profit that we turn off of one? And I looked them both right in the eye and I said, because that's 10 more families that got more monument from me than they thought they would ever be able to afford. So what? I had to work harder for that profit. Oh, well. It's 10 more families that I got to take care of. And that's 10 more families that are going to tell the rest of their family, and 10 more families and 10 more families to come to me. And I don't have to pay a dime of advertising that you're having to pay 10 grand a month for advertising, which I know some of my competitors are doing, because I get it word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and here's one question that we hadn't asked. And I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, but online monuments, if somebody calls you that they have a pallet sitting in their driveway with an online monument that they ordered, are you going to set it?
I will go set it, because I feel bad because they probably family I just took care of 2 weeks ago. I ended up selling them a whole new monument, but that's a long story. But it arrived damaged. They couldn't get any justification for it. It arrived smaller than the one they ordered. I have a soft spot for the internet sales families because we're just trying to save a buck, because I guarantee they went to their local brick and mortar companies and were priced out of it. They didn't have a choice. Yes, I mean, that long answer, but short answer, yes, I will go set that, and I'll charge them a fair price, but I'll also let them know that I am exempt from any responsibility whatsoever. I charge them a very fair price to where I'm just barely breaking even. I might make money for a case of beer and dinner that night, but it's just to get their monument installed for them, because I respect why they went to that internet company.
What kind of beer and what's for dinner? Because that determines what the margin is there.
Right.
Are we talking Keystone, or is this an import beer?
Oh, hell no, that's Yingling and Surf and Turf.
Oh, oh.
Well, hey, again, we do really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on with us. It's been enlightening. Obviously, we'll be in touch further on going down the road, and it's good to put a face with a name, and I'm sure we can watch you fecal agitate more as time comes on.
Just know it's never rooted in any kind of bitterness or evil.
That's
not how I'm going to tell the story.
It's every once in a while, just
wait till this episode comes out and you hear the edit.
Oh God, I could imagine the edit.
No, we don't edit. We keep everything all together.
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the forum. I don't have a filter, and if I see something stupid, sometimes I can't help but comment on it. So if there's a snowflake that takes that the wrong way, sorry, I hurt your feelings.
No, you're good. You're good. So I appreciate it again, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the future, man.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Appreciate you coming on, man. It's been great.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good night.
You too.